All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to our June garden talk. I'm having a hard time believing it's June already. Today we've got Kris Bannister, who's a master gardener, and Kris is going to talk about eating our weeds. Go ahead, Kris.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Yes, my name is Kris, Master Gardener, and today the topic is eat your weeds. I had a chance to go to a foraging course last year in June, and that's where I learned that plants that I consider weeds were actually edible and nutritious. For example, stinging nettle. Now, stinging nettle, everyone usually avoids like the plague, but it is edible if you harvest and process it properly, and it makes an excellent pesto. Crabgrass is another example. You think crabgrass is a weed in your lawn, a nuisance. However, the seeds of crabgrass are nutritious. They have protein in them. And Eastern Europeans back in the day used to make a porridge out of it and called it kasha. So today what I'm going to do is share some of the things I learned in the foraging class and hopefully kind of get your interest in foraging and if anything, look at your weeds a little bit differently. Okay, edibles. There are over 1,000 species of edible plants that grow in the wild in Eastern North America. The types of edible plants include nuts, berries, mushrooms, common weeds that you find in your yard and elsewhere. Our ancestors used to forage. They forage for plants for medicinal use as well as to supplement their diet. But over time, that has gone away because of our domestication of different plants. All plants are edible, but some only once. So you really have to know what you're looking for, okay? Some edibles are toxic if eaten raw, but if processed properly, are edible and nutritious. The main key that I want you to take away from this program is you have to be 100% sure of your forage edible before eating. So today I'm going to select just a few edibles for our discussion. Foraging of mushrooms is not going to be discussed because that's a special skill set. If you're interested, you can go on Google, and there is a couple of places here that do mushroom foraging. Nuts and berries won't be discussed either. Okay, rules for foraging. Can everybody hear me? Am I speaking at a good pace? Yep. Okay. Okay. First rule, always research the plant first before foraging. And when you research a plant, that means all the details, where it grows, what it looks like, et cetera, et cetera. Because some edibles have toxic lookalikes. Look at all the plant's characteristics, such as leaves. I'm a little nervous, so I apologize. The edges, if they're toothed, if they're smooth, the color of the leaves, if they're hairy, the stem attachment, etc. Some leaves attach to the stems opposite each other, some alternate. So those characteristics are important in differentiating different plants. Sometimes the stems can be hollow, square, round, hairy, color, etc. are things to look for, and flowers, if any. Know if the plant is an annual, biennial, or perennial. And that's important because this helps determine when best to harvest. Some plants are best when the first year as a biennial, some other parts of the year. I'm a little nervous. I apologize. All right, this is my first time, so I apologize. Okay.
Fine.
So the important thing is be 100% sure of your identification. You can't be 99.9999%. It has to be 100% because eating something that is not the correct thing can kill you. Always cross-reference. Don't use one reference book to identify your plant. Always use two or more. And the important thing to remember is when in doubt, throw it out. I have here an example of some lookalikes. I think a lot of people are familiar with this plant. This one right here, does anyone know what this is? This is a Queen's Anne's lace, okay? It has some toxic lookalike. There's two on the slide that are edible and one that is toxic. If you look at these, they're pretty similar. But but the thing is, you'd have to look at them closely and see their identifying factors to determine which is and which isn't. If you're just looking at the flowers, you think they're the same. Queen's Annesley is edible. The cow parsley is edible, but this one in the middle is hemlock, which is extremely toxic. So safety first. Like I said, some edibles have toxic lookalikes. So like I said, be 100% sure of what you're looking at. When you're going out there, learn to identify other toxic plants like poison ivy, poison oak, giant hogweed, cow parsnip, stinging nettles. I know I said stinging nettles, put them in toxic, but if you do touch them, they have formic acid, they'll give you a rash. But like I said, if they're harvested and processed properly, they do make a great pesto. When you're out in the outdoors, of course, the common thing is to wear proper clothing, use gloves, use insect repellent if needed, and be around bugs and ticks. Always have at least 2 reference books to identify. If you're using your technology there, I would also cross-reference. I would use the app Seek. That's more reliable than, say, using Google Camera. I find some, errors in that, but that's whatever is easier for you. Carry the proper tools to harvest and containers to store your edibles. So things like a shovel, if you want to get to the root, scissors, plastic bags are easy to carry around. To determine if you're allergic to it, something that you don't know or have not eaten before, take some of the leaves, crush them, and then rub it on your wrist here. Wait 30 to 40 minutes. If it turns red, or a rash appears, do not eat. You're probably allergic to the plant. And never eat out in the field. Always bring your edibles home. When you do bring them home, wash them in cool, clean water and prepare properly before eating. Some do's and don'ts. State parks in New York State do not allow foraging, so you can't go forage in Letchworth Park. And federal lands are also prohibited. You can forage in state forests as long as for your own personal use. Town and county parks are off limits too. If you do go out and forage someplace off your property, always ask the landowner permission first. These are places that you should not because of all the chemicals and pesticides and herbicides that we use. So do not harvest within 200 feet of a roadway. And these things are common sense. Within an urban area, edges of any farm where pesticides, herbicides, and chemicals are used, near polluted waterways or canal systems, and power line right-of-ways near railroad tracks or areas sprayed with a herbicide or toxic chemicals. If you do use chemicals on your lawn, I suggest don't harvest any of those dandelions that you have there. Do's and don'ts. Another rule to follow is what they call the rule of thirds. Harvest only 1/3 of the plant to keep the plant growing and to allow other species to utilize. So for example, if you're foraging a milkweed and it has 3 flower buds on it, take only 1 and leave the 2. You want to leave the 2 for it to grow and to give it to other, like the monarch butterfly. Invasive edibles are harvested more aggressively. So when you do research one of your plants, make sure that it's not a endangered species. And harvest only what you use. Don't get greedy, I guess. Do clean your forage edibles with clean water prior to eating. Again, don't eat in the field and prepare the edibles with recipes found in foraging books for optimal taste. And do seek seasoned foragers to help you with your experience. And these you can find online in the area. So I selected a few of our weeds that at least I find in my yard. And so I'm going to start with burdock because I have a nice burdock in my yard that I didn't take care of right away. And now it's just spreading as it's a beautiful plant. This Latin name is Articum, and how you identify it is a biennial, which means it grows in the vegetative state the first year, and then it sends out a stem and flowers the second year, and that's where it goes to seed. The first year appears as a large leaf basal rosette pattern with no central stem. And you can see how the detail I'm going into. These are the things that you need to know about your plant when you are harvesting. This is a first year plant, this picture here. Second year forms a central stem growing up to 2 to 9 feet. It has these really pretty purple flowers on there. The leaves are large, lobed, toothless, wedge, or heart-shaped. You always look at the top of the leaves, the bottom of the leaves, again, the stems, and the actual area around where the plant is growing. Each leaf is attached to a stem that is purple-green that looks like rhubarb. Flowers are purple or pink that form burrs, famous burrs. And the taproot is shaped like a carrot or a parsnip. The edible parts of a burdock include a taproot, stems, and the leaves. The taproot tastes earthy, starchy, nutty, and slightly sweet with a potato smell. And here I have a picture of a stem. Notice the purple markings on that. The taproot is prized in Asian cooking, and I'll talk about that later. The stems taste like artichoke hearts. You harvest the second year in early spring, because later on, when the plant gets older, everything tends to get woody, including the taproot. The leaves are edible, but they're really not worth the time to process because they have a lot of hairs on it. As our instructor told us, just give it to the goats. The nutrient value of burdock, it provides potassium, phosphorus, calcium, magnesium, and vitamin C. If you do overeat, it can act as a diuretic or a laxative. Some fun facts regarding burdock is believed to have spread around the world initially through Roman legions via the burrs, and it came to America via immigrants' clothing. The taproot is called gobo in Asia, and it's prized for Asian cooking. I suggest if you want to try eating the root of burdock is to grow it in hay bales. Then it'll be easier to harvest. Digging it out is a difficult process. And normally, because the root is so huge, you usually don't get much of it. The idea of Velcro came from the burrs. And the original recipe for root beer contained burdock root. Okay, second plant in my yard is chicory, Chicorium intybus. Everyone sees chicory, usually blooming around August time. It's a short-lived, non-native perennial that resembles a dandelion in early spring before a central stem and flower bud form. A lot of times when people go dandelion picking, they'll mistake and pick up chicory leaves, but they're edible, so that's not a problem. At this stage, it's called a basal rosette. So it's just a round, just leaves in a circle. Midrees of leaves are tinted red with short hairs down the center back. Long, erect central stems with alternate leaf placement that are lance-shaped, toothed, and lobe appear in later spring and summer. Flowers appear at the top of the stems that are lavender blue color. Plant has a large taproot. And again, I know this is a lot of detail, but this is what you need to do when you do go foraging to understand your plant. The edible plants are the taproot, the leaves, and the flowers. The taproot is large and is used as a coffee additive or substitute. Probably heard of chicory coffee. You harvest this in the spring through the fall, but of course the best are always the first year roots. When dried and ground, it smells like coffee. The leaves are harvested in early spring. Like it says, they're sometimes mistaken for dandelion leaves, but they are edible. The flowers are harvested when blooming in the summer and fall. Nutrients. I was really surprised. Chicory has a lot of nutrients. Vitamin A, folic acid, vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin K, calcium, copper, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, and I thought this was interesting, lutein and zeaxanthin, which is good for your eyes. If you ever use arid supplements, those are the two ingredients that they have for eye health. Some fun facts. It's believed to be the oldest cultivated vegetable in human history, first described by a student of Aristotle around 3 BC. Cultivation in North America began around the 1700s and continued through the 1950s. It's still used as a coffee additive and substitute today. It's very popular if you ever go down to New Orleans. You can get chicory coffee with your beignets. Yeah, beignets. Leaves and flowers can be used as a natural dye. Our favorite weed, the dandelion, Taraxacum officinale. And this picture here on the top there. This is what a rosette, a basal rosette pattern looks like, in case you're wondering. Again, identification. Long-lived, non-native perennial that forms a basal rosette before a stem and flower buds appear. Leaves are long and lance-shaped, deeply toothed, and hairless. Yellow flowers are actually a composite flower, which means they consist of hundreds of smaller flowers attached to bracts. So if you think you're looking at like kind of a daisy-like plant, they're like not really. It's actually has a lot of like hundreds of different plants. The plant has a long taproot that's light beige in color, and everyone probably knows that when they're reading. And the stem, leaves, and root extrude a sticky, milky sap. The edible parts are leaves, taproot, and flowers. The leaves you harvest in early spring, and the earlier the better, because that's when they're the most mild. Later on in the season, they become very bitter, and it takes a lot of process to get them so they're palatable. Taproot, you harvest in early spring before the leaves and buds form, or the fall after several frosts for optimum taste. Roots would become bitter otherwise. And this I thought was very interesting. The dried root, when ground, smells like smells like chocolate. We actually got to make hot chocolate with the ground root. It was quite tasty. They dissolved it in some water and added some like a creamer to it, and it tasted. I mean, not a dilute to hot chocolate, but still, coming from the fact it was a dandelion root, I thought that was pretty cool. And then nutrients, potassium, vitamin A, C, and E, again, lutein and zeaxanthin, calcium, and it's considered more nutritious than many of the cultivated greens that we have. A lot of Europeans, when they came to the United States, actually brought dandelions over because they were nutritious and had them in their gardens. Eating some fun facts. Am I going too fast? Okay.
No.
Fun facts. Eating dandelion greens goes back as far as the ancient Greeks. The Greek goddess Hecate honored the hero Theseus with a salad of dandelion greens after defeating the Minotaur. I think that's kind of lousy just getting a bowl of dandelion greens after killing the Minotaur, but hey, maybe back then it was a good thing. The Normans in 1066 called the plant dent de lion, since it reminded them of lion's teeth. Over time, it became known as dandelion. During World War I, the U.S. Health Department encouraged people to forage for dandelion greens and the roots to supplement their diets and a replacement for coffee due to shortages. Like I said, the root when dried and ground smells like chocolate. So you might want to give that a whirl when you're weeding your dandelions. Okay, next weed is a milkweed. Milkweed is something that we like to have in the garden because of our monarch butterflies. Asclepias cyrenaica, I can't pronounce this, cyrenaica, which is the common milkweed. I'm only going to do the common milkweed. I suggest staying away from any other milkweeds because they tend to be more toxic than the common milkweed. Yes, it is toxic, but if processed properly, it is edible. So, identification. And everyone probably knows what this is, but common milkweed is a native perennial that grows erectly from 3 to 6 feet with stout, hairy stem and long oval leaves. Stems are hollow, tough, and somewhat square. A sticky, milky sap is released when the stems, leaves, and roots and flowers are crushed. And leaves are opposite each other and 4 to 6 inches apart on the stem. Leaves are deeply veined and are dark green on top and dusty green underneath. This is important to remember too. Flowers appear in early, late summer and smell like lilac or rose. I didn't know they had a scent because I can't smell. Early buds are tight clusters that look like green balls, which you can see some of those up on top there, and become pink, drooping umbels. Rough green pods appear later that turn brown in late summer, fall, containing flat brown seeds attached to silky hairs. The edible parts, very interesting. Shoots, leaves, flower buds, seed pods, and seeds are all edible on the common milkweed. Shoots, harvest in early spring. This is when they're the most tender. Again, the leaves, the same thing. Harvest in early spring because those are the most tender. Flower buds, which I showed you on the past picture, harvest midsummer when in a tight ball before the umbels form. It has a mild broccoli flavor. We actually got to forage these. I was very skeptical. It's like milkweed, but it actually tasted very good. It's one of the few um, um, uh, foraged weed that we enjoyed. Seed pods. The seed pods, when they're green, are edible, believe it or not. You harvest in late summer while still green, and the seeds are edible too, and you harvest those in the fall. The thing with milkweed is you never eat it raw, and that's because of its the sap. You always boil it in water before eating. This will remove the milky sap, which contains toxins. And I also have this native plant in my yard called dogbane. And this one, do not confuse milkweed with dogbane. I have a picture here of the common milkweed and then the dogbane. And there's some definitely different characteristics. Do not get these confused. Dogbane is extremely toxic. It's called dogbane because it can be toxic to your animals. So the difference is dogbane does not have a velvety feel to stems or leaves compared to common milkweed. Stems of dogbane are darker, turn red as mature, and are smooth and solid versus the milkweed, which is hollow. Flowers of dogbane are white that form flat clusters and have no scent. Veins on leaves are not as prominent and the cream colored, and leaves squeak when rubbed. So the rule of thumb is to avoid all milkweed varieties with skinny leaves. Different species of milkweed have different toxicity levels, so I suggest just sticking to foraging common milkweed if that's what you plan to do. And that's why it's important to know all the characteristics of your plant. So milkweed, nutrients, potassium, calcium, magnesium, vitamins A and C. Fun facts, of course, everybody knows this. Host plant for the monarch butterfly, and the Native Americans use sap to treat warts. And thank you, Jan, for that picture. I appreciate you.
No problem.
It's our little secret. Okay. Plantain. You've probably seen this in your yard too. I have a lot of plantain in my yard. The common one is called Plantango major. Identification. It's non-native perennial that forms a rosette of wide, oval, hairless green leaves. The leaves are 6 inches long and 3 inches wide with 3 or more predominant veins. If you see in this picture here, the veins on the leaves, they're very characteristic of the plant. If you look at the stem, it forms a U shape with threads inside that can be seen when you gently tore apart. It's kind of like a mucus. It's very mucus-like in the stem. The leaves are great. A seed spike forms from the center up to 1 foot tall that flowers with small white blooms in the summer and that later turn brown in the fall, then forming black seeds. And the black seeds are what are edible. If you're going out for a walk in the fall, you need a snack, you can grab a few of these seeds and eat them right off the plant. There is a native species called Plantango virginia. It's not as common, and this one's a little bit different. It does have the rosette, but the leaves are land-shaped, lightly hairy green leaves that may be toothed. Has multiple erect stems from the base, again blooming in the summer and turning brown in the fall and developing black seeds. Edible parts. Leaves and seeds. Harvest in early spring, can be eaten raw or cooked. The seeds, harvest in late summer or fall and eaten raw. It is kind of mucus-like, but it is high in fiber. Nutrients, vitamin C, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus. Very high in fiber. Fun facts. Native Americans called Plantango major white man's foot because they noticed that whenever Europeans set foot, the plant soon appeared. Darn Europeans. And the European species of plantain seeds are known as psyllium, which you might be, and are used in the product Metamucil or your fiber substitutes. So I probably want to eat a lot of the seeds when you go out there foraging because, yeah, yeah, fun time. Okay, another weed, or I like violets, so I let them grow. In my garden are violas, and they are a herbaceous perennial native to North America that form a low, dense, ground-hugging clumps in the spring. The green leaves are heart-shaped and with scalloped edges. The flowers are 5 petals, 2 upper, 2 side, and 1 lower. Side petals often have a bearded tuft with dark veined white throats. I think everyone's familiar with violets. Use flowers for identification before harvesting leaves. In other words, make sure the plant is in bloom before you harvest because there is a toxic look-alike. Flowers are sweetly scented and come in violet, white, and yellow colors. And of course, there's other species that have that are mottled with purple splotches and pink splotches, etc. Edible parts, leaves and flowers. Harvest in spring. Always, it's best to harvest in spring with a lot of these things because that's when they're most tender. There's when they're first coming up. They can be used raw or cooked. And harvest in spring the flowers, and those can be used raw or cooked. The thing to be cautioned with, which I have a picture of here, is the celandine. If you look at it at first glance, you might think in the spring this is a violet, but it's not. So this is lesser celandine, and there's another plant which I didn't have a picture of, the kidney leaf buttercup. Both of these have oopsies. Okay, it's gonna be okay. Is it still in there? Okay, I'm just let it go. Kidney, both have yellow leaves and are toxic. So that is why it's important to identify the violet when it blooms. When you see that violet blooming, you know you got a violet. Just so you know, African violets are not edible, and violet leaves have a laxative effect when eaten in large quantities. So just be aware of that if you're going to put that in your salad. Nutrition, vitamin A and vitamin C, and they really have a lot of vitamin C. I was really surprised about this. The fun fact, half a cup of violet leaves is said to have as much vitamin C as 3 oranges. Yeah. So, oranges are kind of expensive. So you might want to go and harvest some violets in your yard to get your vitamin C. Flowers are used to make jams, jellies, and syrup for lemonade, and host plant for the fritillary butterfly species. So it's another host plant for butterflies. So it's good to have around. This is another weed I have in my garden, the common yellow sorrel, Oxalis stricta. I like oxalis. I usually buy the purple ones to put in my pots around in my yard. So identification, native North American perennial, also called, I'm sorry, excuse me. Also called a wood sorrel, which has 600 varieties, and they're all edible. So even the ones that you get in the garden center, if it's as long as it's an oxalis, you can eat it. It's often mistaken for a member of the clover family, and that's because it has it's very clover shaped, has those little heart leaves that are shaped in threes. Green heart-shaped leaves grouped in threes around a stem, and each leaf has a stem too. It has yellow flowers that consist of 5 petals, 5 sepals, and 10 stamens. It blooms through July through September, though I have mine blooming now in June. Seeds form inside a hairy rib capsule called fruit. And that's the fruit of the plant. I didn't get a picture of that, but this is a yellow sorrel in bloom. And all parts of the plant are edible: the leaves, stem, flowers, the tubers, and the seed pods. The taste is a tart, lemony taste. And the taste comes from the oxalic acid that is in the plant. Nutrients, it is high in vitamin C. Because it does contain oxalic acid, people who have kidney stones should be cautious. But I just want to note there's a lot of foods in our diet now that have oxalic acid, such as spinach, kale, Swiss chard, purslane, peppers, tomatoes, cabbage, to name a few. So the thing is, you have to know yourself best. If you are prone to stones, I suggest not eating as much or just not eating it at all. Fun facts. Has been used in the past to treat scurvy. Scurvy is a vitamin C deficiency. Leaves and flowers fold downward at night or on cloudy days to conserve energy. I don't know if you can see in that picture, but if you notice some of the leaves have gone down like this. I call them kind of like bat wings, but they go down. And like it says, they close up at nighttime and they open up during the day. When the fruit ripens, it opens, sending seeds up to 39 inches away, and that's why it spreads nicely in your yard. So those are the weeds I covered. Now I just have some guided classes and experts. You can do local foraging because in these areas I found a lot of the wildlife management areas you can forage in. So I listed some here, like the Canisius, some state forests like the Ocean and Sunier forests, which is more south of here. Rattlesnake Hill Wildlife Management Area. Genesee County Country Village and Museum does offer classes and sometimes foraging trips. And a good website is the New York Foraging Group. It's a Facebook group, and they're local. And they can, if you're interested, they can provide you some information. The important thing is before you go out is first of all, know your plant and know it inside out and have your reference books handy. And I always suggest checking with your local town and county parks as well as state New York forest before foraging. Like I said, you can't forage in Letchworth Park, but you could in a state forest. And the rule with the state forest is that if you're using it for personal use, they don't mind you foraging. Harvesting in New York State parks is illegal without special permission. Like I said, you can't forage in Letchworth State Park. And also, I suggest contacting the New York State DEC for regional land regulations. You don't know if you're going on some, person's property or if it's monitored by the DEC. So these are the references, and that's all I got. So any questions or concerns?
So I think I'm gonna
Okay.
do questions because I do want to turn the recording off before we get questions. Let's just give Kris a round of applause.
I apologize for being so nervous. That my mouth is dry. It's like I apologize.
Great job, Kris.
Oh, thank you. The first.